tool to treat viruses, including colds and flu. Antibiotics are only needed for certain bacterial infections. When they aren't needed, antibiotics won't help you, and the side effects could still hurt you. Ask your healthcare professional when an antibiotic is the right tool and when it's not. Visit cdc.gov/antibiotic-use.
180 over 111, and I had a stroke. I couldn't speak or walk.
This is high blood pressure. Get back on your plan. Go to loweryourhbp.org. Brought to you by the American Stroke Association, American Medical Association, and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. Be a part of the show by calling 915-544-KTSM. 915-544-5876. Or comment online on our stream at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. It's 4 p.m. Mountain Time, and that means it's time to talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media services we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of stuff we're going to be talking about here today. Just a couple of the things top of mind here. The economy. It's the economy, stupid. I say that phrase enough personal here. So let's delve into some of the factors that we're looking at. I know talk of recession, contraction, things going on. Economic reports are swirling around. So, of course, we got more than a few things going to be affecting us here in the borderland, either from some of the national expectations, what some of the top level talk is, of course, but then what are some of the local factors here and why I still remain outside of anyone's political spin on it, a little bit bullish on the borderland, at least for now. A couple of factors will point towards there, plus a few other things going on, including the CHIPS bill, its progress moving through here, one of the more interesting bipartisan efforts that could further set some economic territory and movement for us here, well, as a state anyway, but also some pronouncements coming in from across the borderland, including both sides of it here. So that's just a couple of the things going on. But in the meantime, a few more things we'll be talking about today is we also have Calvin Williams joining us, already chiming in over on the Facebook page, facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Good afternoon to you as well, including governor missing the New Mexico governor, Michelle Lujan Grisham, visiting New Mexico, or the closer by regions of Doña Ana County, here a little bit earlier today. I mean, some interesting things coming out of that, but really more pronouncements about development of the region and workforce development, most specifically, as also they were breaking ground at New Mexico State Veterans Home, or Truth or Consequences. Not quite the most biggest thing, but additional housing assistance and other things like that. Very different ways things are moving forward. And also with the way gas prices are moving, well, we got a lot of swirling figures that we will get into here today. So if you want to chime in during the show over on the social media, again, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk, you're going to find a lot of resources there for you, as well as tuning into the show here. But also have those phone calls a little bit later in the hour as we will do so. So it's the economy, stupid. One of the biggest things that is being focused on as we get closer and closer to the election, because if it's doing well, you tend to find those people in power a better chance to stick around, and if it's doing poorly, we've had that conversation more than a couple of times about the way that if you don't like what's going on, you're going to tend not to be happy with it, or at the very least, maybe not show up to support the person you previously have, or show up to support the person that you want to replace them. That tends to be a one-to-one conversion. I don't like this person anymore, therefore I'm going to vote for the other one. Tends to be contractions in voting, though I think at this point in time, this is going to be one of the more energetic elections coming up. We'll have more on that in coming days, working on some interviews for you there as well. But just on the economy, of course, we've all heard the line coming out about it's a recession. What is it? Again, the technical definition, the one I operate on, is 2 months of concerted economic contraction. And we have seen that, but of course the indicators are a little bit scattered. because it's not even just any one thing, everything trending downwards. We're looking at a bunch of different factors, including, I know the job numbers keep getting pointed at, among other things. That's what the White House, Joe Biden talking earlier this week, the president saying that he doesn't think it's heading to the recession, God willing, which is, as much as I appreciate the pronouncement, not necessarily the greatest economic plan to have, than saying, well, we'll see what happens. But that's another point here. But also, of course, speaking virtually while still isolated here, seeing it as transitioning. And that's a phrase we've been hearing a couple of times, transitioning, moving from one period to another, the way it's been getting said a little bit, from rapid growth to sustained something. I'm not really sure what that's coming down as. But the idea of there being more, I mean, we've already had at least one use of a similar phrase, transitory, when it came to inflation being a little bit, well, they abandoned that. That's the simple answer there. Because the idea of it just being, oh, this will just be a little while and it'll be fine afterwards, tends to be the line used by people who don't want you to think about what will really be coming afterwards. So what is really going on there? Yes, there is low unemployment, though one of those kind of nagging factors along with that has what has actually been going on with the labor supply. Because even if we have low unemployment, some of those factors are that the labor supply only really includes those that are actually out looking for work. Because if they have dropped out of the labor force for whatever reason or aren't counted traditionally, it's not an all-inclusive number. It's part of the problem there. And really, one of the bigger concerns I have along with that, if we're saying, okay, we're transitioning to a new period of time, but it's not a recession, but if we still have things like inflation, but also things maybe not growing as much, even by that admission, we start getting into other very scary phrases of, well, what about stagflation, which is a situation we haven't seen in more or less my lifetime in this country anyway. And the idea of moving into that there is stagnation where things aren't growing as much or economic expansion going on, and yet prices still going up, inflation still going up. That's a really special kind of economic hell that we don't really want to be getting into here. If like a minute saying, let's transition back to how things were, that would be a nice thing. I mean, okay, there are some nationally, just focusing solely nationally right now, some positive indicators, among other things, gas prices coming back down. I mean, seriously, it affects a lot of base prices and ways it comes to, but that's, I mean, if you're just able to not to pay more for things, but they're still pretty high, changing the way that prices are formulated, still not a great thing. Of course, we have also had stocks falling ahead of that next very much expected rate hike. The only real question remaining right now is, what will that rate hike be coming out of the Federal Reserve? Are they going to be looking at another 50 basis points, 75, or a full 1% increase in that base level interest rate? That makes a lot of people nervous and makes me very happy we locked in the mortgage rates we did whenever we were able to before the previous rate hike came in. Even if we're now a little bit of a money pit going on with there, make sure to look under carpets, people. That's all I'm going to say. And then John Brazelton bringing up another interesting point there about crypto mining. Yeah, that market, let's just say at least one of the exchanges I was looking at still in its bankruptcy negotiations. So we'll see if that one, I know, was supposed to be a hedge against, well, recessions and market downturns and things like that, though it hasn't quite totally been working out that way. But John saying one of the biggest crypto mining organizations be located 100 miles east of Lubbock, 6 planned mining operations, computers will be using the same amount of electricity as the city of Houston. Yeah, that's one of those issues that I have with the long-term potential, shall we say, of crypto, because seriously, the amount of energy required to just process these transactions, because blockchain is an interesting technology since it has some potential, but one of the factors here, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that every transaction requires the processing of essentially every previous transaction, because the blockchain is the chain of everything that has happened with it. So as more transactions happen, it gets more complex and takes more time. That's why Bitcoin mining is essentially the crowdsourcing of the actual processing power, and in exchange they get not exactly a commission, but a bit of the, particularly when it comes to Bitcoin, newly generated currency out of that. If this is sounding very complicated, the bottom line is that, yeah, it takes a lot of energy, and why with downturns and going on with it, it has not proven to be, particularly with energy prices going up, not proven to be the most viable transaction. Why anything totally built on it is probably going to have issues along with it. And Louis Pinato saying my lack of skepticism is astonishing. I'm still very skeptical about, particularly coming out of the White House and other things, but I still think there's reason to be bullish on El Paso, and we'll get into those numbers here. Already due for that first break here right now. Again, you are tuned into Talk El Paso, airing live here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk, looking at some of those factors, particularly what the CHIPS bill will mean for Texas. I'll load that a little bit later. More on the El Paso numbers. What I'm looking at, the argument we'll make coming up here after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Got a crash on Gateway West, westbound at Reynolds. It is blocking the right lane on westbound Reynolds overpass. That's involving two vehicles. Expect some delays there. On the 10 eastbound at Cotton, that earlier wreck is now off to the right shoulder. All lanes back open. Mesa Street, southbound at Wrestler, an injury accident, and a crash reported Alameda Avenue westbound after Reynolds. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Find yourself going through life ignoring the totals on your receipts? Oh, I can't bring myself to look. We've got your shot at $1,000 with Inflation Vacation. Listen every hour from 9 a.m. through 5 p.m. weekdays for your chance to win $1,000.
Listen for your chance to win $1,000 every hour, 9 a.m. through 5 p.m. weekdays on News Talk 690 a.m.
This report is sponsored by Red Pilled America.
Red Pilled America is the storytelling show that is saving our culture. This week we answer the question, do illegal aliens commit less crime than American citizens? Listen to Red Pilled America every week on the free iHeartRadio app. That's Red Pilled America.
Hey, El Paso, Ivan Ochoa, General Manager of Sunland Park, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. We make car buying fun, fast, and easy, and our goal is to ensure everyone gets the lowest price possible with exceptional trade-in values.
At Sunland Park, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, no one pays over MSRP on every new car, truck, and SUV in stock. Plus, save big on every certified pre-owned vehicle. For a limited time, get 0% APR for 60 months on the all-new 2022 full-size Wagoneer SUV with third row seating. Get up to $8,000 off select new Ram trucks or super low 2.9% APR for 72 months. All military personnel and all first responders receive an additional discount. Thank you for your service. Trade and upgrade for less during the Make This the Summer event at Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Where buying a car is fun at I-10 at Sunland Park Drive or online at sunlandparkdodge.com. Estamos en tu esquina El Paso strong. Includes factory rebate and dealer discount plus CTNL. 0 APR is $1,667 and 2.9% APR is $1,515 per thousand finance on select vehicles with approved credit. Offers not combined. Excludes Hellcat, SRT, and TRX models.
You should be able to earn money with your money and with more control. Solo Funds makes it simple. With the Solo Funds app, you lend money to other members to help them replace a tire or cover an emergency expense, and they pay you back with a tip. It's a win-win. Plus, you control which loans you fund and when you fund them, so you can make a difference and a return. Join us. Download the Solo Funds app on the App Store or Google Play Store.
Testosterone levels are at an all-time low. Individual T levels decline 1% every year. Chalk, CHOQ, is the new champion of natural testosterone boosters. Chalk's main ingredient is clinically studied to naturally boost testosterone 20% in 90 days. Supercharge your masculinity and boost your daily energy with Chalk's Male Vitality Stack. For a limited time, our listeners will get 30% off at CHOQ.com with promo code USA. CHOQ.com, code USA.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're still up on these days. Facebook.com/Talk El Paso being one of the main ones here where the Skeptic Squad gets together. Anyway, for the most part, and the Thunderdome of comments already starts here. RJ congratulating me on the money pit here. Let's just say that ripping up some carpets and finding them still wet underneath, yeah, we're going to have some subfloor work, but we got some budgeting that we have done and will be doing, so it should be accounted for, but still not fun. In any case, that's why I'm just recommending that. Still glad we've got certain things locked in, and Ed Clore telling the story about the man who accidentally threw away a hard drive containing 8,000 Bitcoins. Now has a plan to get them back. The $11 million scheme includes purchasing two $75,000 robotic dogs that excavate his local landfill. Reminds me of the story in a different, less bad way. I don't know, depending on your perspective on it. Apparently, in a southern New Mexico landfill was the bulk of the copies of the failed Atari ET game. Yes, I'm talking about the original Atari and the original ET, one of pretty much always voted one of the worst video games, among other things, the fact that it didn't really work. And so to recoup costs, they put them in a landfill and put they practically Chernobyl the things, put them in a concrete coffin. And so there was at least a documentary crew trying to actually then find them there. Reminds me of there. RJ saying with the house there sounds moldy, get a good mask. Not moldy, thankfully, just let's just say a pet policy may or may not have been followed in the rental it used to be. I mean, I've got pictures if you want to see them. Buy me a drink and I might tell you more because it'll take me a little bit there. But in any case, yeah, the whole Bitcoin thing, it's a little bit nuts sometimes. I was also aware of a story today of one guy who sold everything he had to buy Dogecoin at its base level, bought it before it went up, and so made many times back his money. It taxed out about $3 million, but then he never sold. So he's right back about where, if not below, where he started. So just remember, holding on and not actually seeing a return on investment, bad plans when it comes to your investments here. But getting back to that national or even international economic situation, that is definitely causing a lot of consternation, heartache, and speculation in just a whole lot of ways. Of course, we have what the White House is saying, that they don't think, hoping there won't be a recession. Hopes and dreams, definitely absolutely good economic policy there. But then, of course, we have stocks falling today, as we've been hearing since the top of the hour and such, on both earnings decisions, including Walmart, other retailers losing 5% or more, Kohl's, Target, Nordstrom, and Macy's. McDonald's, Coca-Cola raising a little bit. I guess we need cheap food and drink. But also there being expectations, I know Alphabet's, Google's now parent company, coming in a little bit disappointing, and even some expected earnings reports from Meta, the now parent company of Facebook, looking at even some contractions coming up. So issues abound here. And even then, internationally, IMF, the International Monetary Fund, their chief warning that the world may soon be teetering on the edge of a global recession, according to the chief economist at the IMF. So increasingly gloomy. So I'm not saying there's a lot of reason to be optimistic out there. Again, depending on how you define it, we may already be in a recession. Again, I kind of go with the 2 months or at least 2 quarters of economic contraction. And we have seen more of a little bit of that, but the indicators can be a little bit muddy because we still see low unemployment, even if unemployment has never really totally gotten back, because total employment levels, another key indicator to look at, have been a little bit low. And so with some of the economic projections internationally looking weaker, 2.9% growth, down even from this year, an expected 3.2% global GDP growth, and even some very much pessimism coming from, let's just call it a different part of D.C. here with former President Trump, of course, speaking in D.C., talking about, well, a lot of very not good things about this administration and the state of the country here. Definitely heard that at the top of the hour as well. And more doom gloomy, and if there are some strange predictions about the next presidential race coming out of that. In any case, let's talk a little bit statewide for just a second here, because of course there are some potentials for, I know among other things, Governor Greg Abbott has still been very much focused on what it means in the job reports, showing Texas having one of the strongest job growth rates in the nation, adding around 130,000 as of last month. So that very much being touted. So that's why, starting nationally, very much, reasons to be concerned, and that does continue. But there is, well, the story isn't quite the same everywhere, I guess is the point I want to try to impose and discuss with you all, because the idea of there being different circumstances, that sure, areas that have not made adjustments or seen continued change, if you're not changing, you're dying or already dead, sometimes as it comes in economic terms, at least when it's talking about businesses, that's often the case. So that legislation that has been being discussed, kind of case in point, that CHIPS Act, the one that Governor Greg Abbott has been issuing statements on ever since, well, last week, among other things, and the idea of adding more investment, including Samsung, among others, looking at building many new plants, 11 of them expected in kind of the Austin-Tyler area, a potential, and would improve a serious amount of economic investment here. And there are some concerns that even come with that. I mean, this is, of course, long-term planning, but even the construction starts at this point would be beneficial. And, of course, I mean, you start wrapping in concepts like national defense and others, and it gets a little bit more important, perhaps. That is working its way through the national legislature right now. The supply chain currently is definitely at issue there, and Congress still working at the kinks in that new CHIPS bill, estimated to give $50 billion in direct subsidies and funding to the semiconductor industry, expected to lead to $79 billion in new spending over the next 10 years, including building out modernizing factories for chip making, according to our news partners over at KFOX 14. One of the rare kind of bipartisan efforts that seems to be at least kind of working here. Nice to see occasionally that something can be worked on. But again, more long-term is what we are talking about in this way. And again, the supply chain issues, moving it around, nearshoring or actually reshoring in this case would be a part of it, as an issue we've been long discussing, of course, here. Because doing it, making it so that the supply chains are less of an issue, well, it takes time. It's not the trajectory we had been on, so an abrupt stop and about face, a little bit difficult to achieve sometimes here. But let's talk then locally, because nationally, we got issues to get through. Statewide, some potential, some strong growth, or at least improvement over previous numbers, but still some reasons to be maybe a little bit dubious and skeptical. And even as gas prices are coming down, with interest rates going up, inflation still pretty high, where does that leave us locally? That's a question that I've been most interested in and been looking at for the last couple of weeks because, well, certain indications here, including that, again, the consumer price index, 9.1% lately, and probably not going to be coming down anytime soon. And among other things, the average gas price, even just in our area, topping out at about just over $4 in our area. Yes, I know there's been much higher in certain areas of town, but well, you need to go to other areas of town is my best advice there. If you've been having it, definitely seeing it down below in the $3 range, I should say, around here locally. Not the greatest, still higher than we would like it to be, certainly, but better indications of what might be coming, particularly given the growth and utilization. There's a couple of specific ways that you don't usually see it out there unless you're, well, really delving into the numbers. Like, again, I've been poring over charts, graphs, and everything. So, already due for that next break of the hour here right now. Coming out of this break, what's some of the more industrial indications, warehouse space, construction starts, crane watches are showing in our area? Because, again, I tend to be a little bit maybe optimistic about El Paso, maybe a little bit foolishly sometimes, but I tend to believe that we are better positioned than most in a lot of ways, and a lot of the uniqueness that we see in the borderland region. So, coming out of this break, we'll get more into those numbers, more what they show for this area, and why I do still remain bullish on the El Paso area. More comments coming in here as well. RJ saying that we are in a recession. We've been in a recession. The road that has started with the White House with the pen in Biden's hand. There's definitely a lot of policy aspects that need to be addressed here, because they may not, there's an argument that may not be the cause of it, but if they're not doing anything to change it, yeah, then we got other issues certainly there. So due for that next break right now. Coming out of this break, we'll take more comments on the line here and get closer to opening up those phone lines as we do towards that point in the show. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Don't go anywhere.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
With your CBS 4 News update, I'm Amanda Guillen. A 22-year-old man who was already in the El Paso County Jail after making a terroristic threat is now facing murder charges. El Paso police rebooked Brandon Snell for shooting and killing 28-year-old Raul Zamora. They found Zamora dead at his East El Paso home last month. Snell now faces a $1 million bond for the murder charge. And breaking news just into our CBS 4 newsroom this morning. A murder investigation is underway in Northeast El Paso at a home on Redman Drive. This is near Dyer and Railroad. Police tell CBS 4 they received reports of a dispute between a couple and that shots were heard. When officers arrived at the scene, they found a man and a woman dead. Our crews are on their way, and you can count on us here on CBS 4 to keep you updated on air and online. That has been your CBS 4 News Update. I'm Amanda Guillen.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
Northbound Reynolds Street at Gateway West on the Reynolds overpass. A crash involving two vehicles closing the right lane right now and causing a bit of a backup. Paisano Drive eastbound at the 110, an accident reported. Injury accident Mesa Street southbound at Wrestler, and an accident Rich Bean Boulevard north of Edgemere. Sheriff's deputies on the scene of that crash at Tierra Flores. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the Forewarned Weather Center, this is CBS 4 weather forecaster Brady Brewster. Temperatures not as hot, thankfully. We'll be in those mid-90s, right around where we should be for this time of the year, nearly all week long. We'll see those chances for thunderstorms normalize as well, about a 20% chance each afternoon. Make sure you're keeping your eyes on the sky.
This report is sponsored by Red Pilled America.
Red Pilled America is the storytelling show that is saving our culture. This week we answer the question, do illegal aliens commit less crime than American citizens? Listen to Red Pilled America every week on the free iHeartRadio app. That's Red Pilled America.
The job market is competitive right now, so you need to be competitive to attract top talent. If you're trying to fill open positions at your business, iHeartMedia is here to help. Use radio and digital targeting to find fresh, passive candidates currently in the workforce. These candidates are listening right now, looking for new opportunities. Together, we can let the community know you're hiring. Visit iHeartAdvertising.com. That's iHeartAdvertising.com.
If you're 45 or older, this message could save your life. Health experts now recommend starting regular colorectal cancer screening at age 45. Colorectal cancer is the leading cause of cancer death, but it's preventable through regular screening. There are more screening options than ever before, including at-home tests. You've got the guts to prevent colorectal cancer. Talk to your doctor about your options and visit cdc.gov/screenforlife for more information.
Staples has everything you need for school at prices that won't hold you back. Right now, 24-count Crayola crayons and Polly Pocket folders are just 50 cents each, and 1-inch binders are only $1.99. In-store only. Offer ends 8/27, limit 30. Don't send your kids back to school. Send them forward at Staples. This report is sponsored by Staples Stores.
Next Thursday, you will be caught in an extreme flash flood.
Disasters don't plan ahead, but you can. Talk to your loved ones about making an emergency plan. Get started today at ready.gov/plan. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
So I'm a dog, and I just got adopted by this new human guy, and I'm starting to wonder how he got along without me. I mean, okay, something as simple as walking around the block. He's got this leash thing, and he puts me on one end and him on the other, and I'm just taking him around. I think he's afraid of getting lost. Without that leash and me guiding him along, I don't think he'd find his way back home. But it's kind of cute.
A person is the best thing to happen to a shelter pet. Be that person. Adopt. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the ShelterPetProject.org.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel, over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. Talking a lot about the economy today, because it's been very much in the news, some with middling predictions, some with very dire ones. But whether you look at it nationally, internationally, even statewide, or even local, there are some bright spots here, and a savvy investor, or at least managing your own finances, may know how or not to impact that, but there's at least a couple of reasons, a couple of factors I want to point to here why things might be, well, a slightly different story here. It's often said, and it's a long bit of kind of almost truism in our area, that El Paso lags behind national economic trends by years to even better parts of decades sometimes here. And sure, general recessions often mean things here, but at the very least, given the complex nature of the factors here, because not everything is necessarily trending downwards in a lot of ways, but I mean, what's the difference between a recession and a depression? A recession is when your neighbor loses their job, and depression is when you lose yours. Very perspective kind of thing, I know. And even though there may be some more dire pronouncements out there, such as Choco Tacos apparently being announced that they will no longer be made, their production has been discontinued in both the 1-pack and the 4-packs. I know that hits me very much at home, and for a lot of people it will as well. And I've even seen some people suggesting invoking the Defense Production Act to keep them going. Don't expect any of that to happen. Or if this is maybe just another one of those marketing blitzes like there were around Twinkies going away. And, well, I don't know. We'll see what happens there. At the very least, I want to tell you about a couple factors looking at here locally, why I think, anyway, that we may not be on the exact same trajectory as the rest of the nation or maybe even bypass it. Again, El Paso has a lot of different factors involved with it and a lot of different supply chains, even if you ever want to say I talk about whenever people mention about, why don't we have insert popular chain here, Buc-ee's, H-E-B, Trader Joe's, etc. It's because of supply chains. But that doesn't mean that we don't have any here. We just have different ones, and they are pretty well constantly changing and shifting. And one of the reasons I think that there may even be more coming through the area, one hyper-specific indicator here, and one I've been working on talking more with y'all, trying to get on the actual analysts here. But in the meantime, we'll definitely talk about it, warehousing in the area, because oftentimes it's estimated that somewhere between a third and a quarter of all of the jobs in our area, in the larger borderland region, but El Paso specifically, are directly related to trade and everything that comes with it, whether it be things like the actual movement of goods and services through the numerous ports of entry we have in the area, to then the services of the buildings, of the vehicles, support staff, those kind of things, encompasses quite a lot of people. Probably, if it were to be under one umbrella, one of the larger employers in our area, contending even with, yes, federal government writ large and Fort Bliss, among other things. Yes, Steve Ivy, I share your very much sadness as well. And yes, as soon as I heard, I need to remember to go out to the store and get a whole bunch of them and then maybe put them in the deep freezer. And maybe that'll be my retirement plan on just the Choco Tacos there, because seriously, there'll probably be special promotions here. Anyway, point is that trade, very foundational for our area. We have a lot of other foundational things as well, including, agriculture and, really military, a lot of it out there, considering we're at the tail end here in El Paso, one of the largest contiguous military reservations in not even just the continental United States, but pretty much in most parts of the world here. Point is that warehousing space. You may drive around, see them, and say, man, I wonder what's in those giant buildings. And there has been a lot of construction of it. A lot of construction. Do not make any mistake here, because seriously, we've had the Amazon warehouses going up both on, yes, the far east side, once they get out on the way to Horizon practically, and even now coming up in some of the other areas on the, I guess what we're now calling northwest side. Still sounds weird to me, but I'll roll with it eventually. One of the biggest issues here is that even if there was a bit of a dip in 2020 and 2021 saw a recovery, we are at one of the lowest actual availability of warehousing spaces in our area, according to the firm, the El Paso Industrial figures, as noted by CBRE Research, that we're actually down at about 1.4% of vacancy of all warehouse space in our area. That means that we have about a 98% occupancy of all warehousing. And you may say, I was talking with someone about this. Well, you go around and say, there's, little ones that I see, and seem like there's a lot of availability. When we're talking about warehousing, usually not in conjunction with actual retail space in front, but also there's different levels of it. Class A is really what we're talking about here. The biggest, the best, usually the newest. And some of those factors, well, it's kind of a lead indicator. Some years ago, more than 5 at this point, I need to figure out the exact number, was doing some reporting out on the Santa Teresa area. We've talked about that at certain various points here. And at one point, they were out completely of warehouse space, meaning that anyone who wanted to move into the area was either going to have to build their own or wait for someone else speculating to come in and do it, most likely a kind of jump started on their own at this point. So El Paso, even now, is at, well, very low rates, and the average cost has continued to go up, reaching about, let's call it just under $750 per square foot in the asking rates annually. And this is compared to, say, even in 2018, it was closer to like $4 per square foot. Again, for some of this, Class A space. It varies a little bit different between the two of them. So rates have been going up, space has been going down, and the amount of demand for it has continued. I've long argued, frankly, that some of the major developments we've seen in retail here, including the fountains at Farah, have been not just nice areas, nice things to have in the air, but really see change in the way that is being thought about in the region, the way retail and stores even consider this area, because some of those businesses over there, particularly the national ones, on paper, frankly, said flat out no, but then some of them had some of their biggest openings, period, when they opened in this area. So that has been one of those kind of long-term or medium-term to this point development opportunities, and why we've seen, if you haven't been out far east El Paso, just keep going on I-10 towards East Lake, and you'd be surprised how far it goes these days, because the building out there is pretty significant, and the way that's, well, it's pretty much mirrored on either side of I-10, on either side of the county at this point, whether they're talking about the West Town Marketplace or the buildup around the Amazon warehouse. Pretty big, pretty bright lights, pretty well occupied. So the growing edges of the county are continuing to do so. And yes, we have talked about some of the relative stagnation of the growth rates. Again, make no mistake, there has not been a zero growth rate happening in, well, really the county at large, or even really within the city of El Paso. Some places have seen movement out to the peripheries or readjustments. That's why we've got some of the redistricting going on that you're going to be wanting to pay attention to once we get closer to those city council elections. But still, we have still seen a growth in the county, just more towards the edges rather than the inside parts on the older parts of the county. So the fact that we have these warehouses being pretty much fully occupied and more construction even starting with one of the highest rates of building of it. I mean, there is an expectation of about 6.3 million square feet of industrial space under construction, one of the largest, again, according to CBRE here, one of the largest figures ever recorded in our area. So this isn't even just well, there's not a lot of space right now, but people might start vacating. No, there's a lot more even being built right now. So that's one of those other indicators here, but even some of the more conservative analysis here, talking about conservative in terms of the expectations, like are you being optimistic or are you kind of holding back? There has been, according to such as the Borderplex Business Barometer and the Border Region Modeling Project, which we've talked about with some of our friends over there at UTEP, including the professors Fullerton, about the fact that, yes, gas prices, transitory fees, those kind of things are making things a little bit more expensive. But even then, the expectation was, as of the last report anyway, that there might be a business cycle contraction during the fourth quarter of this year. But given how much of that is even just based on expectations, what might be coming, again, looking at some of these factors and some of, well, just what people are expecting, I have an argument to be made that we might continue to see more growth, more expansion, and more focus here on the borderland area. Frankly, I think that there are being more than a couple of national businesses. We've talked about some of those investments happening in the area. Schneider Electric comes to mind immediately, only because I see it over there at the West Town Marketplace, building up their expansion of their El Paso campus in our area, continuing on a pace. They're not showing any signs of slowing down over there. And others that, yes, there might be some challenges. There might be some continued movement in the economy and what is or isn't having issues at any given point, but that there have been more businesses, particularly national ones and even international, waking up to the possibilities of this region, because we often get overlooked, I mean, often by Austin more than anything, and therefore not focused on. But okay, one more concrete aspect of it, El Paso Link, we've talked with them at good length about the amount of, well, their crane watch, just put plain and simple. And there are a number of car dealerships in the area that are taking the time to refit their areas. A number of them, actually at least 3, if not more, but also more road construction, more focuses on building out space, including charter schools and such. So the Crane Watch and the people willing to make the investment, even with these economic forecasts and the way they are being done nationally and even statewide, put money into it. But let me give you one other factor that has, well, just recently come to my attention anyway. The idea of what is being spent on actual further trade infrastructure in our area. Very specifically, one of the organizations that I pay attention to, including the El Paso Metropolitan Planning Organization, MPO for short, the Center to Raise Support of Entry, again, an interesting facility, and the overweight cargo zone is but when a lot of what we've majorly focused on. There's going to be at least some initial funding and the design funding being given now to the New Mexico Border Highway Connector. That would be something that would connect off parts of I-10 and lead straight across the desert out there to the Santa Teresa Port of Entry, making it an even more easily accessible area. So the idea of this business and everything with it contracting, potentially. I am not a financial advisor, and you should not take this as financial advice as such, but I do remain bullish on El Paso, and I think some of these factors here are laying a decent groundwork in a lot of ways. RJ having some trouble with the comments over here. So that's my mild argument anyway on why, even if we are looking at technically nationally a recession, well, things never totally spread out equally and cross the entire nation at any one point. And even if El Paso does lag behind in a whole lot of ways, there are still reasons to maybe not be optimistic, but plan effectively for what might be coming for our region here. So with that note, we will go ahead and overdue for that next break right now, and we will go ahead and open up those phone lines here, because I've laid out a heck of an argument, and I'm sure there have been plenty of people yelling at me through the radio, and here's your chance to do so. Well, actually through the phone line here as we open up that phone line. That number to do so is 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. And some of the comments and other things coming in here. So stay tuned for more Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. More discussion about the things affecting us and focused here on the border after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
An injury accident on South Zaragoza northbound at Americas Avenue is causing delays. Use Alameda or Padres Drive instead. All lanes are back open after a crash northbound on Reynolds Overpass at Gateway West. I-10 eastbound at Hawkins, a disabled truck blocking the left shoulder. And sheriff's deputies on the scene of a crash, Rich Bean Boulevard north of Edgemere. Kerry Edwards, El Paso Traffic.
This report is sponsored by the Mark Moss Show podcast.
The markets and financial system are out of control and impossible to understand unless you understand this. I'm Mark Moss, helping you navigate the decentralized revolution. Listen to the Mark Moss Show on the iHeartRadio app, on the Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
You should be able to earn money with your money and with more control. Solo Funds makes it simple. With the Solo Funds app, you lend money to other members to help them replace a tire or cover an emergency expense, and they pay you back with a tip. It's a win-win. Plus, you control which loans you fund and when you fund them, so you can make a difference and a return. Join us. Download the Solo Funds app on the App Store or Google Play Store.
iHeartRadio Earth is here with little tips for a healthier planet. Plastic waste in the environment persists for hundreds to thousands of years and creates serious risks for wildlife, ecosystems, and humans. Help reduce plastic waste by replacing single-use plastic packaging, bottles, and containers with reusable products. Brought to you by iHeartRadio Earth and the National Environmental Education Foundation. To find more tips for smarter, sustainable living or to take action in your own community, go to iHeartRadio.com/Earth.
Almost 3 million people use Navage to breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and stay healthier. I'm Martin Hoke, and I invented Navage, the world's only nose cleaner that helps flush out airborne germs with powered suction. But what do doctors have to say about Navage? Here's Dr. Tonya Farmer, a board-certified ear, nose, and throat specialist.
Most airborne allergens and viruses enter through your nose. When that happens, it can cause congestion and irritation, and that just makes you feel miserable. You can get a cold, you can get flu, sinus infections, or even worse. Flushing your nose with a saline solution is the most effective way to flush all of those dangerous threats out of your nose. So now when patients come in my office, I tell them I highly recommend that you use Navage on a daily basis for overall good health and wellness.
And Navage is all natural and drug-free at Navage.com, Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Bed Bath, and Target. Navage, N-A-V-A-G-E. Clean nose, healthy life.
Staples has everything you need for school at prices that won't hold you back. Right now, Staples comp books and number 2 pencils are just 50 cents, and 2 pocket paper folders are just 25 cents each. In-store only offer ends 8/27, limit 30. Don't send your kids back to school. Send them forward at Staples.
M1EP.com. Superior multifamily property management services citywide.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in, however you may be doing so. A lot of ways to interact with the show, particularly at this point during the program. When we do have that phone line open now, that number to call is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. A lot of commentary coming in as well. RJ over on the YouTube page saying, I remember when El Paso was a national redheaded stepchild. Now it's nice to see our potential being seen by the rest of the country. About time. Apparently having some issues with double posting over there. Louis Pinato, kind of disagreeing with me. Well, definitely disagreeing with me here. Calling out stats kind of in the lies, damn lies, and then statistics kind of way here. Saying that he's a truck driver and see a lot of empty warehouses. Those that are occupied do not have a lot of employees. And calling out El Paso propagandists touting low crime, calling it a myth. Better financial conditions, also a myth. Food lines have been replaced by food stamps. Police underreport crime, etc. I mean, the food lines are definitely in the place. So don't get me wrong here. I have some reasons to be bullish, but there are certainly still a lot of challenges that need to be dealt with by, I don't know, effective leadership in our area would be a nice thing to start with. And why, just as ever so often we mention here, getting to the ballot box and making sure we have some decent elected leadership, or at least elected officials, even if they refuse to lead kind of thing, probably a good idea. In any case, again, some reasons, because there's also a difference between an empty warehouse and an abandoned warehouse, because a warehouse that is still being utilized and kept up by any organization, business, etc., there are a lot of expenses that come to do that. So if they don't see the value in it, they won't bother doing it. I do think that we have some transitory, as much baggage as that phrase has these days, challenges, including the supply chain ones, that can be resolved. But as with everything, stay tuned to it. And Maria Coleman, bringing it home another way, this would be a positive if the local government would alleviate property taxes. They would be wise to use this as an opportunity to find other sources of tax revenue. Giving corporations tax breaks never trickles down to homeowners. I mean, we are a little bit underwater in a lot of ways that way. But let's go back to those phone lines now. Again, that number to call is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. We do have Frankie and Messia on the line with us right now. Frankie, thanks for joining us.
All right. Right out of the box here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what's going on, but somebody's either lying or they're playing somebody for a fool.
Mm-hmm.
I've got plenty of gas for my car, and I got plenty of beer when I go to my beer mill. Matter of fact, it's 2-3 deep at the bar. So I don't know where this recession is going or where all this nonsense, 2 quarters, all this stuff. Hey, I don't see anybody here in Messia, running around, oh, woe is me, Chicken Little Sky is falling and stuff. That's number one. Number two, I heard that Andrew guy, awful Andrew, yesterday, giddy as a little girl with her first little cupcake smushed all over her face with the melted chocolate, going on about Joe Biden at 26%, 20, whatever the heck percent he was saying to that. I got something to say to you. Not you awful Andrew, right? Let me tell you something. There's this great song by Frankie Sinatra. Notice he has the same famous name as me.
Mm-hmm.
And the song is That's Life, right? Riding high in April, shot down in May, changed my tune, and I'm back on top of June. And that's exactly what's going to happen between now and November. Now, hey, Awful Andrew, are you going to still be giddy? Huh? I want to know that. That's what I want to say.
Fair enough here. And again, recessions, I mean, if we are in one, we are at arguably the beginning of one, but the indicators are not all in sync here because, again, unemployment numbers are low, even if there's a little bit of maybe skewedness going on with that. Inflation is definitely high, but it's also not universal. Among other things, cheap food, like fast food and the low grade kind of stuff you can still get at grocery stores anyway, has continued to be decently priced, not at the same kind of 9.1%. Remember, that's an average, not a guarantee for each particular sector. Other things like fuel have, of course, taken off in the last month, but I will agree with you that I haven't noticed any particular shortages or inability to get it, even if you're paying a little bit out the nose for it. And definitely when it comes to beverages, there was issues with can supply, the actual aluminum, there for a minute, but that seems to not be an issue at the moment. We're still seeing a lot of supply and availability shocks and a lot of different ways, but, well, they don't happen universally.
Well, I hear you. And, you're spot on. But I can tell you, I've been on this planet for 80 years. I've gone through at least 11 recessions. I've gone through this bad thing, that bad thing, this good thing, left, right, up, down, anywhere around the 360-degree arc, right? And guess what? That's what happens in life. Nothing goes straight up. Nothing goes straight down. It's up, it's down. It's up, it's down. That's just the way the world works. And everybody running around there, chicken little with their head cut off, you're just lying to yourself. That's what it is. Oh, go on. All you people out there, go attend another one of Donnie Dotar's rallies, you morons. That's what I want to say.
All right. Well, thanks for the point in the call. Do appreciate it.
Okay, you're welcome.
All right, and that'll go ahead and take us through that next break there, due for the top of the hour and the news break that comes with it. So if you want to get on the line here, leave your comments. Social media, we got a few coming in there, and also calls on the line here. And again, that number to do so if you choose to, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Don't go anywhere.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
No major delays on your El Paso freeways right now. Got an injury accident. Police still working Zaragoza northbound at Americas Avenue, causing slowing. I-10 westbound from Schuster to Executive Center Boulevard. The right lane is blocked for road work. Turnaround lanes closed all this week on Americas Avenue, both directions at Pan American, Alameda, and North Loop Drive. And South Desert Boulevard southbound still closed from Artcraft to the Loop. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Hey Texas, this is Eric Burton.
And I'm Adrian Casada, and we are Black Pumas. We've partnered with Don't Mess with Texas to turn up the message to keep Texas clean.
So come on, join hands and let us be united. Let's all do our part in taking care of our beautiful state roads.
It's time to step up. Together, we can keep Texas litter-free.
Don't mess with Texas, y'all. Peace.
The El Paso Community Foundation supports the causes you feel passionate about here in the borderland, whether it's education, social services, arts and culture, the environment, health, or economic development. The El Paso Community Foundation has been promoting philanthropy and progress in our hometown region for more than 45 years. Make your mark with us. Start a fund today for good, for El Paso, forever. Learn more at epcf.org. That's epcf.org.
Attention men under the age of 35. You know what really impresses the ladies? When a guy has a few drinks and later gets pulled over for buzzed driving. That could cost you around $10,000 in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. There goes let's grab dinner and a movie. Oh, I know. You drive more carefully when you're buzzed. You've proven that hundreds of times. A woman admires that kind of confidence. And you've practiced how to speak if a cop does pull you over. Slowly, clearly, and politely like, "Good evening, officer." A woman admires that kind of foresight. And what woman doesn't find it adorable that you call it buzzed even though the law calls it drunk? You could kiss $10,000 goodbye, along with any chance of having a girlfriend. Because nothing says, "I'm a catch," more than a guy who lives in his parents' basement and calls it my place.
Buzzed, busted, and broke. Because buzz driving is drunk driving.
A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Because you never hear this.
Hey, hon, I'm late.
Chris, I am so pleased you missed the beginning of our meeting.
Thanks for making me wait, Dad. I talked to a lot of strangers.
Check on your commute. Stay informed. Traffic and weather all day. Or you might never hear the end of it.
Well, you were late to our anniversary dinner.
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all News Radio. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. It's a down day on Wall Street ahead of the Federal Reserve's decision on interest rates. Stocks extended losses on inflation fears, with retail shares falling after Walmart cut its earnings forecast. The Dow Jones lost 228 points to 31,761. The S&P fell 45 points to 3921. The White House is trying to calm fears of a potential looming recession.
Consumer spending remains solid. Household balance sheets remain largely in good shape. We are seeing credit delinquencies and measures of credit stress at historic lows.
National Economic Council Director Brian Deese said economic data points to a transition rather than a recession. He said the White House is focused on improving the economy rather than analyzing the data. He reminded reporters that President Biden's decision to release oil from the strategic reserve helped lower gas prices by more than 50 cents. The Senate is moving towards final approval of a major computer chips bill. The measure cleared a key procedural hurdle in the Senate on a vote of 64 to 32. It aims to bolster U.S. production of semiconductor manufacturing while boosting competitiveness with China. More coronavirus cases in the U.S. are being blamed on the BA.5 subvariant of Omicron. Lisa Taylor reports.
The CDC says it's responsible for about 82% of the variants that were in circulation for the week that ended on Saturday. It comes as President Biden's doctor said the commander-in-chief was likely infected by that variant. Biden dealt with symptoms including a runny nose, fatigue, and a dry cough.
Police body camera and surveillance footage is being released of an officer-involved shooting at a North Texas airport. The video shows a woman believed to be Portia Odufwa pull a gun near a ticket counter at Dallas Love Field. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. The two candidates to become the UK's next prime minister are debating their respective economic policies. Julia Chapman reports.
Former Chancellor Rishi Sunak promised to get the economy under control and accused his opponent of leaving the country's debts to the next generation. Foreign Secretary Liz Truss has vowed tax cuts on day one, which she insists will help avoid a recession. It was a fierce debate marked by frequent interruptions and critiques of the candidates' backgrounds. The next UK Prime Minister will be named in early September. Julia Chapman, London.
The Education Department is pushing tougher regulation of for-profit colleges. Proposed regulations would go after efforts to exploit veterans and service members, loading them up with student loan debt. Education Secretary Miguel Cardona said predatory, deceptive practices that target veterans and service members have no place in higher education, period. The new Jackie Robinson Museum in New York City is now open.
Tennis great Billie Jean King says the experience of the museum will be important for people of all ages.
I think it'll remind us about Jackie Robinson's legacy, but more importantly, what can we do now for the future because of it?
The museum in Lower Manhattan will honor the life of Robinson and his civil rights work and will feature thousands of artifacts and historical photos. Robinson is known for breaking the color barrier in Major League Baseball. Lisa G., New York.
A 70-year-old Mickey Mantle baseball card could break auction records next month. Currently, a New Jersey waste management entrepreneur owns the 1952 card, which is said to be in near perfect condition. He bought the card back in 1991 for $50,000. It's estimated the final cost of the card could exceed $10 million when the auction ends August 27th. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
Now your chance to win $1,000. Just enter this nationwide keyword on our website. Pay. That's pay. Enter it now.
Make this the year you go to our iHeartRadio Music Festival.
Friday, September 23rd and Saturday the 24th. Buy your tickets now at AXS.com.
Stream it free on the CW app and CWTV.com.
Having the time of your life is more rewarding than ever when you visit any of the MGM resorts nationwide. With MGM Rewards, dine, stay, play, and earn on all of it. Get details at MGMRewards.com. Subject to earning and redemption limitations applicable to certain purchases and in certain states.
This report is sponsored by Indeed.com. If your business is feeling a summer hiring wave, then you need Indeed. Their all-in-one hiring solution makes it easy to attract, interview, and hire candidates. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
Did you know audio memory lasts 6 times longer than visual memory? That's why businesses advertise with iHeartMedia, the #1 audio company in the country. Reach consumers with radio, podcasting, streaming, and more. Make your business a household name and visit iHeartAdvertising.com or call 844-BUY-RADIO. Grow your reach, grow your business. Call iHeartMedia today. Visit iHeartAdvertising.com or call 844-BUY-RADIO.
Hey, you're listening to me for free right now. And that's awesome because it seems like they're trying to charge you for everything these days. But not radio and not the iHeartRadio app. It's all free. Podcasts, streaming music, digital radio, all in one for $0. It's like, why wouldn't you download it? Unless you want to pay for it. But that's weird. Don't do that. I mean, you can't. But you can listen to everything you love on the iHeartRadio app. Download it today for free.
iHeartRadio.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media outlets we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. Also, of course, got that phone line open right now, so if you wanted to chime in that way, that number to call is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. A couple calls on the line here, and we'll get to those throughout the rest of the hour here as we do. Talking about the economy in general here, though there are still plenty of issues and points to be made about it, but growth and expectations for it do seem to be continuing, at the very least in the borderland. And as you heard in the top of the hour there, that whole CHIPS bill still working its way through. But in any case, if you want to chime in over on the social medias, we have Flaca Jimenez, RJ, Robbie Flores, Maria Common, Louis Pinato, Steve Ivy, Ed Clore, John Brazelton, and more doing so. Calvin Williams also at the top there. Also dropping those likes and reacts. We do appreciate Calvin Williams, Ida Beza Gardner, Robert Haynes, Chandra Oja, Robbie Flores, Monica Cervantes, Louis Pinato, Matt Olson, and more. You're more than welcome to do so here. But let's get to those phone lines again. The number to call, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We do have Raul in the Northeast on the line with us here right now. Raul, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew. Congratulations. I heard that a whole lot of people are listening to the program. What was that number that was talked about the other day?
I think it was something in the 25 or something. I don't look at those numbers as much as how we're actually communicating with people, but if that's the fact,
25 people?
Well,
25,000?
I think there were some zeros behind it, but yeah, something like that.
25,000?
I think on that order here, I kind of came by in passing, but we look at our own stats and numbers in different ways, so I think it matches up more or less.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a good-sized audience. I like that. That sounds good. Yesterday, Tony, the Trumper Christian nationalist, asked her listeners to ask themselves 3 questions. Is there a God? Is the Bible his word? And I don't quite remember the third question, but I think it was Jesus Christ his only begotten Son, who died on the cross for our sins and rose from the grave and death to join his Father in heaven? Now, according to the Gospels, that was the mission accomplished, to atone for the sins of the first humans created in one day about 6,000 years ago. Now, in this Jewish creation myth, God allowed his perfect creatures to be seduced by his other perfect creation gone bad, second only to God in IQ and power, the devil, Satan, Beelzebub, Lucifer, the Lord of Flies. And he allowed this super being to seduce Adam and Eve. Now, God loves his creatures a lot, and yet he gave Satan dominion over the earth in that story. And when God got mad at how bad most humans had become, he drowned to death all but a few of them. So that's the God that Tony's talking about. Now, Tony, I bet if you were born the son of a mullah in the Middle East, you'd probably be a Muslim. And you'd believe that the Quran was the word of God. And you'd believe that Muhammad was his last prophet. And you'd believe that Jesus Christ was just another prophet and not the Son of God. And you'd believe that there is only one God whose name is Allah. And you know, most Jews in Jesus' time and since, and Jesus was a Jew, didn't believe back then and since that Jesus was the Son of God. And they got the Romans to crucify him to prove he was no God. And the Romans were okay with that. So he'd be no source of friction between their occupying forces and the Jewish religious leaders. The Romans allowed the Jews to practice their own faith, and they did not require them to believe in the Roman God. So, Tony, had you been born the son of a Jewish rabbi, you'd probably be a Jew and not accept the divinity of Jesus Christ. And the Romans were polytheists, as were the Greeks, the Egyptians, the Sumerians, the Hindus, the Aztecs, the Mayas. And all of those people who were born in those countries and in those times believed that their own God was the one and only God, and they would have not heard or care to hear about Jesus Christ and his message. And all of those people with their different gods and religions had their sacred books, the Torah and the Talmud for the Jews, the New Testament for the Christians, the Veda scriptures for the Hindus, the Quran for the Muslims, and they all think that their sacred books are their words of their gods, okay? Like most historians, I believe Jesus Christ existed, but I don't believe he was the only begotten Son of God who was crucified for our sins. And I don't believe, like most scientists and secular humanists and agnostics and atheists, we don't believe in devils and angels and heaven and hell, or life after death. You see, Tony, the Trumping Christian nationalists, most people, for the most part, are who they are, believe what they believe, and had the economic, financial opportunities that they had or didn't have because of things that they can't control, who they were born to, when they were born, and where they were born. It's a lot about the zip code and the lottery of life in this cosmic crapshoot. You could have been born a slave, and for a tiny, lucky few, you could have born into a plutocrat family with wealth and political power. Or you could have your lands and homes invaded and stolen by plutocrats, capitalists, colonialists, and imperialists. Or you could have your kids killed at school. Or you could have your home and community destroyed by hurricanes, floods, and wildfires. These are the facts of life, Tony. And most Americans want a separation between state and church, government and laws, and religion and dogma.
I think most people in this life, in this world, want the freedom to be able to practice what they believe in and what is important to them, regardless of how they're coming about it here. I mean, the review of world religions here is not exactly how I was expecting us to go today, and don't have any intimations of us becoming a religious debate station. Frankly, the way I see it is you are free to believe whatever you want to believe, right into the point of where it then starts infringing on the freedoms of others, or particularly me, and I guess in my case, speaking in the first person here. So, yes, regionality of religions is a factor here, but also attacking someone based on their religion or their beliefs here, I don't find it to be productive in any kind of general sense of the word, because in doing so, saying that, well, I think you're wrong for these specific reasons, and I know there's arguments about whether it's religion or not that have also come up here. But let me just say it this in plain and simple terms. The way I find it to be most useful in discussion and for public life is that believe what is right to you. Find what is your truth and your light in this life, and then follow it and bring it to the decisions that you bring into public life. I know there are those that say you must check your thinking or your bases when you enter public life for some of these things, and I'm going to draw a very fine line and difference between bringing your motivations, the things that you think should be done and should be right, from your religious, spiritual, upbringing or ideals that you practice nowadays, and then requiring those to be enforced upon other people. Very bright line to be done there, because I know there are some that say, well, we have certain bases in certain different religions in this country, but all of the founding fathers did have the very good prescience about them to say, we all, even within some of these, Judeo-Christian ethics is often brought up here, we even have differences within that many of them come from a country that had literally gone through a war over this in their ancestors' times, talking about the English Civil War, which, among other things, Protestants and Catholics were very much a part of it. So even within an avowed set of beliefs, the differences between it, if really focused on, could lead to even further conflict. That's some of the basis and understanding that the Founding Fathers brought to their completion of this document, and understanding that giving people the freedom and not requirement to do really anything when it comes to those beliefs is a very important thing, and really wanting to avoid that. And yes, we have had, of course, civil wars, among other things, in this country, but I am very happy to say that we have never had it be because of that basis or because of that level of conflict. And sure, the debate on particularities of any religious belief may be interesting to some. I find it, again, not very useful versus what does that then lead you to do in life and then bring to the lives of others. Deeds, not acts, is a similar type of phrase that exists in many different religions around the world, and the ideas they put forth here. And I find the one that is probably most important to me, because then putting into action is where it really gets important here. So thank you for the point in the call. For a bit off topic there today, we'll go ahead and get back on topic as we take that next break now. So if you're wanting to call into the show, that number to call is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Your host, Andrew J. Polk, talking about the things that affect us here in the borderland, for the most part anyway. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
An injury accident in the lower valley on South Zaragoza northbound at Americas Avenue is causing some slowing and delays. Use Alameda or Padres Drive instead. I-10 westbound at Copia, stalled trucks blocking the right shoulder. North Mesa Street northbound at North Desert Boulevard, an accident reported. And a crash northbound Yarborough at Yermoland Drive. Kerry Edwards, El Paso Traffic.
This report is sponsored by Allstate. Are you a safe driver? Are you looking to save money? With DriveWise from Allstate, the safer you drive, the more you can save. At Allstate, better protection costs a whole lot less. Visit allstate.com or call an agent for a quote today.
Hey, El Paso, Ivan Ochoa, General Manager of Sunland Park Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Fiat. We make car buying fun, fast, and easy, and our goal is to ensure everyone gets the lowest price possible with exceptional trade-in values.
At Sunland Park Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Fiat, no one pays over MSRP on every new car, truck, and SUV in stock. Plus, save big on every certified pre-owned vehicle. For a limited time, get 0% APR for 60 months on the all-new 2022 full-size Wagoneer SUV with third-row seating. Get up to $8,000 off select new Ram trucks or super low 2.9% APR for 72 months. All military personnel and all first responders receive an additional discount. Thank you for your service. Trade and upgrade for less during the Make This the Summer event at Sunland Park Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Fiat, where buying a car is fun. At I-10 at Sunland Park Drive or online at sunlandparkdodge.com. Estamos en tu esquina El Paso Strong. Includes factory rebate and dealer discount plus CTNL. 0 APR is $16.67 and 2.9% APR is $15.15 per thousand finance on select vehicles with approved credit. Offers not combined. Excludes Hellcat, SRT, and TRX models.
This radio commercial was made to convince you to stop speeding. We can't use siren sound effects on the radio, so we'll use other equally jarring sound effects to get your attention, like telling you that whether you drive a little over the speed limit or a lot, you can crash just the same. You could hurt yourself or worse, others.
I'm at the scene of the collision.
And the damage you cause will be beyond repair. See? We didn't have to use crash or siren sounds after all. Speeding catches up with you. Brought to you by NHTSA.
Staples has everything for school at great prices. So this year you won't go back to school. You'll be ready to move forward into art class.
A 4-foot replica of the Statue of Liberty using elbow macaroni?
With glue and art supplies from Staples.
By tomorrow.
Right now, 24-count Crayola crayons and Polly Pocket folders are just 50 cents each, and 1-inch binders are only $1.99. Everything on your list at amazing prices. Staples, we're not going back. We're going forward to school. Ends 8/27 in store only, limit 30.
I adopted Bento in 2010 from a shelter.
A lot of people know him as Keyboard Cat.
That's just one adoption story that started at a shelter. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. All of that is to say, there's a lot of ways you can get at us, particularly with that phone line open. That number to call for wanting to chime in that way is 915-544-5876. 915-544-KTSM. We get into surprising topics sometimes here, but otherwise generally focused on what affects us here in the borderland and those continuing issues. So if we want to chime in on that, particularly talking about the economy today and what some of the indications are, it's a micro set, the ones I'm bringing up here. And of course, there are many more than we'd ever be able to squeeze into one show, but in any case, a lot of people chiming in over on the social media. Flaco Jimenez, Monica Cervantes, Robbie Flores, RJ, Maria Kalman, Louis Panato, and more. So if you want to add your 2 cents over there or the phone line, more than welcome to. So let's get back to that right now. We do have Andrew on the west side with us right now. Andrew, thanks for joining us.
Yes, thank you very much. We've been talking a lot of local issues. Anyway, some of us have. But
yeah,
gas prices, are the majority of the area are still above $4 a gallon here in El Paso.
Okay. I've been noticing that. I mean, I happen to live in the area of town that tends to seem to have the higher ones. And I want to say I saw them coming down just below $4. Not necessarily a lot lower, like still in like the high $3. Like I think I saw $3.70 on the way into work over here on the west side today. So it's coming down, but whether or not that's something to be, well, anyone claiming that action is a little bit more dubious, and I doubt that'll work totally in their favor in any upcoming elections, but it's a good factor anyway. I mean, I'm not totally surprised by it. I mean, the wholesale price of oil has been coming down for a little while. Some of the disconnect between the actual wholesale price and then the oil and the actual gasoline production was a little bit concerning, but I always thought that this would be a high watermark, hopefully, and I'm still hopeful of that for the moment anyway.
Yes, well, there's an old saying, and it is that don't feed the bulldog. It should have never gone to this level. Prices should have never risen to this level. The damage has already been done. I mean, people have lost a lot. Mm-hmm. They haven't been able to live like they were before, and people are doing with less.
That's very true. And of course, the way it gets baked into all the prices and the transportation that is required for the goods and services that we use and enjoy. If anything, yeah, it's definitely put a damper on if there really was economic recovery going on. And it's probably done a little bit more when it comes to that potential for recession or even regional, national, et cetera. I mean, it hasn't helped. That's for damn sure.
Yes. It's like, when I tell people when they apologize for something they did, I say, why do you apologize? The damage is already done. You can't undo it.
Yeah, apologize to the broken plate, as it's sometimes put, yeah.
Yes. Anyway, to Frankie out there, Frankie, as I've said before, you're not operating on all cylinders. Concerning Biden, people in his own party don't want him to run again. Remember, before the election, he was campaigning a lot from his basement.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Well, unfortunately, the Democrats couldn't keep Biden in the basement. He couldn't govern from the basement.
As much as they've been, I guess, kind of trying to over this last week, might be a way of thinking of it.
Well, Biden is, remember, I think you know the principle in management when they refer to a person as a mushroom.
Yeah, when they, there's some other parts of the phrase there, yeah.
I can't say the rest over the air, but anyway.
Mhm.
And as for Comrade Raul, yes. I respect your opinions, Raul, and I respect everybody else's, and I think you should respect everybody's, including Tony's. Tony is an excellent guy. He is a friend, and I'll tell you, I've seen Tony do a lot of good for people, even to the point where in the dead of winter, he sees a man not having a jacket. I've seen Tony take off his jacket, give it to a guy who's cold, and Tony gets back in his truck and takes off. That's the type of guy Tony is.
Again, I judge people tend on, I mean, words are great, and we certainly focus on them here on this program, but what you're doing with it and about it and what end it's going towards is ever so slightly more important to me whenever we get to these kind of bounds.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Anyway, Andrew, I'll let somebody else talk. I send the mic back to you.
I appreciate the point in the call. You have a good one there.
Thank you.
I mean, yeah, I've never intended this to become the religious debate program and don't intend for it to become any more than it is. Again, what you bring with you into public life, the motivations you have, whatever is important to you, probably pretty important to other people, but also foundational in the way this country was started. Seriously, if you're thinking that now you're not allowed to bring that into public life, that's just baloney. And have no issue with it right to the point where you're making it someone else's issue, because your faith is your issue, your thing to decide for yourself, as it is everyone else's. And that's why I find some of the debates that have sometimes gone on, like in our comments and everything about, your belief makes you baloney, is like, seriously, that's just, it's just a reason to argue is what it comes down to, because what you then do with it is definitely the most important part to me. And probably should be judged upon how people do it, because I mean, all the stories about, preaching up a storm on Sundays and then, having to make up for it the rest of the week, those kind of stories. Yeah. Anyway, let's get to some of those phone calls right now. Again, that number to call is 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. Again, if you're calling in the middle of a segment, we might pop you up live there. So stay on your toes for that. We do have a call on the line here right now. You're live with Talk El Paso. Who's this?
Hey, this is Steven. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Steven. What's on your mind?
So there's been a lot of talk about, Biden not running for the next election. I think that there's a good chance he won't run.
Mm-hmm.
But in reality, if the Democratic platform is Democratic platform, how much of a difference it'll make if you just have someone in that position, essentially implementing the same policies. So that's in some respect true for the Republican Party also. I mean, their platform is going to be pretty similar, whether it's Trump or somebody else. It's more about the platform and the aims of the party than it is the individual, except for maybe, personal demeanor when it comes to Donald Trump and competency when it comes to Biden. But the general platform is what I think people should focus on, and the actual policies that are going to affect our daily lives. As for a couple other things, I was just curious because I didn't follow the January 6th hearings very closely.
Mm-hmm.
Was there any evidence that Donald Trump actually planned to talk to people to encourage them to riot or attack the Capitol? I was kind of expecting the Democrats to show some kind of evidence that he did something like that, but I haven't heard any.
In short, no. I know that was definitely the overarching argument, at least one part of them that were really being made when it came to those, because, I mean, yeah, if there was a truly, the phrase that comes to mind is smoking gun there, you would have expected that to be front and center. And why I remain more than a little bit dubious about there being any actual charges, maybe an actual investigation, because make no mistake, this was not one. Not even just an AI that didn't meet the bounds it was supposed to. It was never intended to be. It would never really could be. It was a congressional set of hearings, and congressional hearings are geared largely towards, legislation and affecting that. The only real amount of actual consequences that could come out of it, legally speaking, would be contempt of Congress, as we've seen, some others already enjoying those possibilities. But more specifically, it was meant to basically a trial in the court of public opinion. And so not particular. I know that there were a lot of links trying to be drawn between the cabinet, former president, officials, etc., and some of these other groups and some of the actions of other groups have led to investigations on their own right. But in as much as a direct line being drawn, actual communication, simple points, for lack of a correction of anyone else out there, no.
Right. It seemed like the narrative kind of shifted to, well, maybe he didn't plan or organize or do anything to make it happen. But once it was happening, he should have done something to stop it, which I think is kind of a strange way to change the narrative, because the one thing he tried to do to prevent it was to have the National Guard go when that was declined. And then he tried to tweet for people to go home, and Twitter removed that tweet. And supposedly he tried to get the Secret Service to go to the Capitol so he could go and maybe do something, and the Secret Service declined him. So I'm not sure exactly what he could have done at that point. If he told people to peacefully make their voices heard and they didn't listen to him then I don't see why they would listen after they started the riot. So I guess my final point is, I know you don't want to be a religious debate.
I appreciate that.
But I just want to make one comment because it sounds like, Raul has some interesting interpretation, straw men of as well. And if he wants to go into philosophically the atheistic point that, these atoms in the universe are colliding and we're all just the sum total of the cause and effect of every particle that just reflects around the universe, then all we are is what we were created to be by the universe. Kind of made are what they were born to be, and you're in the religion you're born to be. And from his atheistic point of view, it's the same thing. I mean, if we're just the sum total of the atoms that make up our bodies, we have no free choice. And so he was destined to get jaded by whatever religious trauma he's suffering from. Obviously, I'm a psychologist on the radio, and so he's definitely jaded politically and also religiously, and so he's got no choice in the matter. He was the product of his environment, and that's all he is too. So if he wants to get philosophical about it, then he's basically an atheistic Calvinist, predetermination. All right. Thanks for the time.
Appreciate it. That's an interesting way to put that. Appreciate the point in the call. You have a good one there.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, again, not trying to get into those debate points here. James Ratcliffe, tongue in cheek, I think, quoting, "All we are is dust in the wind" here. Good song. Maybe not the best philosophical point to be made there, but I mean, really, it's what you do with the choices that you're able to be made, because anyone saying that, well, it's not really my fault, it's just the way I was either predisposed or set on a trajectory or told by any higher power. Anything that takes away human agency as a philosophy is one that I find myself ultimately finding many failures in and a lot of lacking of. But not trying to become the religious debate channel by any means here, because again, the First Amendment is the first for a reason when it comes to the amendments of the Constitution. Both free speech, freedom of assembly, freedom of religion, very foundational and very important in all the ways it comes here. You may be welcome to have those debates in your own life and look at values and differences and what makes sense to you. But anyone saying that, no, you're not allowed to do it that way, that's the person that I'm ultimately going to find myself most opposed to there, because who the hell are you to tell anyone that they are or not allowed to believe the way they choose? Like, seriously, that's where I start coming out very much opposed to it. But in any case, when it comes to the law and governance of it, we'll keep talking about it as we do here on Talk El Paso. Taking us through that next break right now. Come out of this break, we'll get some more of those calls, more of those comments, more of the discussion about the things that affect us here in the borderland, as we often do. Well, more often than not anyway. Every day is different, but we'll keep focusing on that here. Again, that number to get on the line if you want to do so, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso. You're on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, everyone. This is Robert Olgain with your KFOX 14 news update. 2 men were arrested in connection to a shooting in a West El Paso neighborhood. Officers have arrested 31-year-old Roberto Gamero and 27-year-old Anthony Rice. The shooting happened yesterday afternoon in the 5400 block of Confetti. Officers say when they arrived at the scene, they found 2 vehicles that had been involved in a crash with the occupants missing. Police say the driver of one of those vehicles fired shots at a man in that neighborhood. Eventually, police say they found Gamero and Rice inside a nearby store at Festival and Mesa. A rifle was found inside one of the vehicles, but the weapon believed to have been used in the shooting was not found. An anonymous tip has led to the arrest of a wanted man in connection to a deadly pedestrian crash in northeast El Paso. Officers arrested 20-year-old Christopher Perez on Monday. That crash happened on June 18th at the 9500 block of McCombs. In the evening at 10 p.m., investigators say that the victim was not walking in a crosswalk, and they say that video surveillance showed a car driving at a high rate of speed when it struck the victim. This has been your KFOX 14 news update. I'm Robert Olgain.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
On Joe Battle Boulevard, southbound at Pebble Hills exit, there's a vehicle that's blocking the left lane. Stay to the right there. I-10 westbound at the downtown exits, exit 19B, an accident reported. George Dieter northbound at Ardell, just below Edgemere, an accident with sheriff's officers on the scene. A crash reported Sean Haggerty eastbound at Gateway North. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the Forewarn Weather Center, this is CBS 4 weather forecaster Brady Brewster. Temperatures not as hot, thankfully. We'll be in those mid-90s, right around where we should be for this time of the year, nearly all week long. We'll see those chances for thunderstorms normalize as well, about a 20% chance each afternoon. Make sure you're keeping your eyes on the sky.
This report is sponsored by the Mark Moss Show podcast.
The markets and financial system are out of control and impossible to understand unless you understand this. I'm Mark Moss, helping you navigate the decentralized revolution. Listen to the Mark Moss Show on the iHeartRadio app, on the Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
You should be able to earn money with your money and with more control. Solo Funds makes it simple. With the Solo Funds app, you lend money to other members to help them replace a tire or cover an emergency expense, and they pay you back with a tip. It's a win-win. Plus, you control which loans you fund and when you fund them, so you can make a difference and a return. Join us. Download the Solo Funds app on the App Store or Google Play Store.
For the local issues and discussion you won't get anywhere else, turn to Talk El Paso, weekdays at 4 right here on News Radio 690 KTSM, brought to you in part by the El Paso Community Foundation. Sound off on what matters to you, Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m., and let's talk El Paso.
If you're 45 or older, this message could save your life. Health experts now recommend starting regular colorectal cancer screening at age 45. Colorectal cancer is a leading cause of cancer death, but it's preventable through regular screening. There are more screening options than ever before, including at-home tests. You've got the guts to prevent colorectal cancer. Talk to your doctor about your options and visit cdc.gov/screen4life for more information.
Wendy's knows everyone hates cold and soggy fries, so they changed theirs to serve them up hot and crispy all day, every day, using only natural cut skin-on fries, prepared to golden goodness and perfectly sprinkled with sea salt. Try Wendy's hot and crispy fries today at participating U.S. Wendy's. This report is sponsored by Wendy's Hot and Crispy Fries.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Do flowers have best friends? I don't know. Hey, look. Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so. A lot of ways to interact with the show, particularly at this point during the program. The phone line is open. Again, that number to call, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. And, of course, the comments coming in over on the social media, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, either under Talk El Paso or Andrew J. Polk on most of those platforms here. James Ratcliffe underlying and, I guess, exposing my classic rock bias here. Yes, I was going with the song Dust in the Wind, but he's clarifying that his previous one, All We Are in Dust in the Wind, is the quote from Socrates in the Bill and Ted's Big Adventure here. So Okay, yes, I tend to more towards classic rock, so sue me. Anyway, some other comments coming in, including RJ, Flaco Jimenez, Monica Cervantes, Robbie Flores, dropping those likes and reacts over on the social media. We do appreciate Calvin Williams, Ida Beza Gardner, Robert Haynes, Chandra Oja, Robbie Flores, Monica Cervantes, Louis Pinato, Matt Olson, and more. So if you want to chime in over there, more than welcome to. Facebook's more or less the main one here. But again, that phone line, 915-544-5876-544 KTSM. We do have Al in the Northeast on the line with us here right now. Al, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, Andrew, as we were discussing off the air there, I've been out of town. I just caught the last 30 minutes of your show here. And there's something that I learned or was taught by one of my adult coaches when I was a kid, regarding religion. And he said that trying to make somebody else accept and live by your religion is like forcing them to wear your shoes. You know, it just doesn't fit. You know, I mean, anyway, getting back to the main topic, which I think you were on today, you know, all these people like Raul and other people who are constantly blaming the conservatives for all our problems all they have to do is compare the presidencies of the Democrats and the Republicans. For example, Clinton rode on the coattails of Reagan's economic brilliance for years, and right now all of the problems we're having are because of the Democrat control. You know, it's just ridiculous for them. I don't know what planet they're living on, but just make a comparison and contrast between what happened under Trump and how great the economy was going, and other issues also, foreign policy, whatever policy you want to mention, and compare it to the disaster that we're all living under now, just within the last 18 months, and we've got another 2.5 years of this nightmare to live through.
Yeah, I think, well, yes and no. I still, even if there are some further questions that we'll probably be exploring on this program in some of our future editions about what voting is looking like, I still think that there's probably a pretty strong trajectory, even if there are more of those single issue and social issue voters that are going to be dragged up because of recent issues. That, again, the reason we were focusing on the economy today, I say it enough on this program, it's the economy, stupid, is a very persuasive phrase for the reason a lot of people end up, well, dragging their butts to the polls, as it were. So specifically saying that unless there is some true economic miracle beyond the idea of we aren't in a recession, I don't think we'll go into a recession, God willing, is, again, just brilliant economic policy here. If we are continuing on, even if, again, a little bit bullish locally, nationally, and even internationally, probably going to see some contractions across many different sectors of the business cycle. When that happens, the party in power tends to no longer be the party in power. Now, of course, in the presidential terms of it, that won't be occurring until 2024. But of course, the midterm election, 2022, that thing we're ramping up to here in November, a little bit over 100 days away, that one is where we could really see some action happening.
Anybody with a grain of common sense knows that Biden is a puppet, and even a poor puppet at that. You know, there are people in the background, the corporate people, and the billionaires, and the New World Order, whatever you want to call them, that are pulling the strings. You know, even during Obama, you know, they say that this administration is actually the third term of Obama, but even Obama was a front puppet. It's just that he was smart enough to realize he could get rich doing it. You know, the forces behind this are pushing us towards totalitarianism, socialism, and so forth. And all you have to do is study a little bit of history to realize what's going on. You know, some of these people like Raul should read Rules for Radical and some of these other things that the socialists are living by, and find out why they are trying to destroy the greatest country that ever existed on this planet.
I mean, yeah, they're calling this a third term. The way I've more put it is that we're looking at another set of warmed over Obama era policies, or in some cases, slightly repackaged Trump era policies. I know it's been a weird term. And I think, frankly, for those that are still maybe even on board with the presidency here, given the approval ratings, there's clearly someone out there. There is a lot of frustration on a lot of inaction in a lot of spheres because sure, some of the, bright line things, inclusion, different efforts. I mean, this CHIPS Act, if it goes through, I'd be very happy about that. Don't get me wrong. So I think that there is not that there's nothing good that could happen, but that even those that were very much on this side, okay, essentially the I just don't like the former president kind of camp here, there's still a lot of dissatisfaction there. Even those that like some of the policies being put forth are not very much like, but where are they? Where are they coming from? We've had this. I mean, sure, there's the whole narrative about the, 50+1 in the Senate side of things. But even then, I mean, it's been a long running joke that nationally that governance, it's really easy to oppose things. Say, no, that's wrong. That's bad. I oppose it. Everything you're doing is wrong. It's a lot harder to actually govern and make things happen. And I think that reality is a little bit more of the frustration we're talking about here.
Well, the reality is that they've had another 4 years to figure out how to corrupt our voting system even further. And, it's just a matter of being able to counter that to even have any hope that we're going to be able to stop this landslide of disaster. Okay, thanks, Andrew. I'll speak to you later in the week. You have a good one. Stay safe, everybody out there.
You too as well. Thanks for the point in the call. You have a good one there too. I mean, there are a lot of points to be made here and a lot of different things to be investigated. But at least I've been seeing some of the think pieces come out saying that, well, the president's unpopularity won't necessarily mean that there'll be very bad things for the party in power. But I am remaining a little bit dubious. But there are also other indicators because, sure, the economy and pain points essentially in people's personal lives may be very, very important for how people decide to vote or if they even go out to vote. Happy people content with everything, thinking things are going fine, tend not to be the most activated, let's just say. That just bears out across generations even. I mean, the whole bread and circuses kind of idea. But really, there's a lot of people feeling more activated, I know, amongst other things, something that you might not look at. I know that Congresswoman Veronica Escobar's office putting out in some of their campaign material saying that they're celebrating having registered 2,500 new people to vote. Not quite sure whatever time frame that is, but I'm assuming it's since the start of the year. I don't know. But in any case, I think voting efforts and getting people activated to actually go vote probably a very key part of what comes forth from here. I think we got time for at least one more call on the line here. We do have a caller on the line with us right now. You're live with Talk El Paso. Who's this?
Yeah, Tony Westside, Andrew. I'll do it real quick. I don't like to call every day, but I still my buttons get pushed when the last caller about being surprised what a disaster that's going on and how terrible Biden is. You guys still don't get it. Things are going exactly the way they want them to go. Listen up, folks. Number one, they're saving the earth, so they don't want you driving a car. Why can't you get that through your brain, guys? They don't give a darn if your gas is $10, $20. They want you out of your car. Please get it through your brain. They're saving the earth. Number two, this thing about unemployment. They want you depending on the government. They don't want you employed, you fools. I apologize. I get excited because Republicans just don't get it. Things are going exactly the way they want them to go. You think that they're logical and they want things our way and they want America to progress and unemployment down. No. You guys are in another planet. They want to save the earth by getting the carbon usage down to as low as possible. They want you not to be employed, but rather depend on the government. Therefore, unemployment doesn't matter to them. And the carbon footprint. And what's the other thing I said? Let's see, inflation. Because with inflation, then you spend less and you have to depend on food banks and yada, yada. You guys are so far from reality. It just saddens me that you don't even know who you're dealing with, bros. You don't even know. But thank you anyway, Andrew.
Sure thing. Appreciate the point in the call. You have a good one there too. I mean, the perspectives on this, particularly of opponents here, again, the real reason, and among other things that we, as the previous caller also was asking about policies and what they actually mean, kind of foundational for the way I think about who should be or shouldn't be, or what will they do if elected to office whenever I go to the ballot box. Because sure, platitudes, I mean, there's never been a politician I'm aware of, at least not a sincere one anyway, that has been out there saying that, no, I want things to get worse. Things are too good. No, they're all saying, no, things need to be better. We'll make things better. Everything will be so great if you just elect me. And if we just took that on face value, well, among other things, most politicians would have been abject failures, which they may have already. Okay, we're getting a little bit too semantic here, and I keep disregarding what those words mean and how people think of them. But seriously, they all say we want things to be better. So how they actually go about it is critical. Because saying that, well, we're going to do it by, say, locally, by increasing taxes, making it so that there are less incentives to move here, and that'll bring in more money to the coffers, and therefore we'll be able to do more. That could be a reasonable argument made by, say, a local politician. And I would tend to evaluate that as maybe being a little bit bunk. Also, they never say we're totally going to raise taxes. It's always we're going to do more for you. And then the question comes of how are you going to do more? And then comes down to there being more taxes. And also James Ratcliffe pointing out the battery operated cars can be centrally controlled as well. I know there's already works but even beyond that, for the idea of there being potentially, I know there's been bills involved for there to be like speed control chips required in new manufacturer cars here. And also low credit scores. I mean, that's already happening. You may have heard about the subscribed features of your cars, seat warmers and such here. So there are many things that you can see potential trajectories from if put into wide amounts. But here's one of the reasons that even if these things are being avowed and demanded and saying that we totally need to do, came across a finer point being made during all the heat wave we've been going through in Texas and the issues that have come along with it. And there was some talk of, or at least other parts of Texas anyway, that they were requiring cryptocurrency mining to be shut down. One finer point that I made, Tesla actually asked Texans not to charge their cars at certain points, quoting from the title of an article by the independent.co.uk here. Tesla asked Texans not to charge their car to avoid overloading the national grid, referring to the national grid of Texas there, which, technically is correct. There's a grid in Texas, referring to it as national. I'm not sure if that was tongue-in-cheek or not. But seriously, we do not, the infrastructure that is needed to do these things, let's put it this way. We often talk about almost in futurist terms of, a connected, interconnected, electricity-supported world. Never mind the fact that there's still more than I think it's now shifted the balance to there being more than half the world is connected to the internet now, but there's still literally billions out there. I think 3 point something was the last estimate I saw, not even with internet access as of right now, much less those that still don't even have reliable electricity. So any of these kind of global things that are being talked about as this will be the future is either willfully leaving literal huge chunks of the population behind, but even within the developed country that we claim to be here in the U.S., the idea that we can just flip a switch and be able to move to this is more than a bit of a literal pipe dream, and not even of a pipeline, but just we're not there. It's going to take more years, probably decades of development to get to the point where that can be done, because also the point being made there about even just Tesla, there's an estimated about 80,000 of those in the state, give or take. And so the thought that even that level of production and usage is going to have great impacts with the way our grid is right now, clearly there's more work needing to be done if that truly is the desired outcome. In the meantime, though, looking at reality, as we sometimes drag people or hope people are being dragged back to actually take and look and stare in the face, because aspirations, sure, good, important, and necessary. John Hurt's calling for a V8 no catalytic converter and lead gas. That's a solution. I'm not going to call it a good one here, because particularly those last two parts, I think we moved. I mean, at the very least, it makes it easier and more efficient to do other things. But reality, getting through the temporary challenges with an idea towards the development of the future is an important one. But a lot of the goals end up being, no, we can just get there right now, promising the sky and not even getting halfway up to the stratosphere. Anyway, we got to take that last break of the hour right now. Coming out, we'll tell you what we're working on for you and what we got coming up for you in future shows here and close out the program. So stay tuned. That last bit of Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690
No major crashes, not a lot of backups right now on your El Paso freeways. I-10 eastbound's a little slow from Trans Mountain down to the Patriot with 5-minute delays. 54 Patriot northbound at Sun Valley Drive, a stalled vehicle blocking the left shoulder. Police on the scene of an accident in Zaragoza at Alameda Avenue. Take Socorro or North Loop Drive instead. And an accident with injuries on Red eastbound at Westwind. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by the Mark Moss Show podcast.
The political leaders are only making things worse, and I can't believe what they just did this week. I'm Mark Moss, helping you navigate the decentralized revolution. Listen to The Mark Moss Show on the iHeartRadio app, on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Almost 3 million people use Navage to breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and stay healthier. I'm Martin Hoke, and I invented Navage, the world's only nose cleaner that helps flush out airborne germs with powered suction. But what do doctors have to say about Navage? Here's Dr. Tonya Farmer, a board-certified ear, nose, and throat specialist.
Most airborne allergens and viruses enter through your nose. When that happens, it can cause congestion and irritation, and that just makes you feel miserable. You can get a cold, you can get flu, sinus infections, or even worse. Flushing your nose with a saline solution is the most effective way to flush all of those dangerous threats out of your nose. So now when patients come in my office, I tell them I highly recommend that you use Navage on a daily basis for overall good health and wellness.
And Navage is all natural and drug-free at Navage.com, Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Bed Bath, and Target. Navage, N-A-V-A-G-E, clean nose, healthy life.
For nearly 100 years, folks have trusted Blue Star medicated ointment to relieve the pain and itching of almost any skin irritation.
It works on my son's dry, itching feet and their jock itch.
I had this rash on my neck. Nothing worked until Blue Star.
Blue Star worked great on my ringworm without steroids.
My wife and I have been using Blue Star for years. It's never let us down.
Look for the white box with the Blue Star in the first aid section. Feel Blue Star work fast or your money back.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack, but not with ZipRecruiter. Its powerful technology actively finds and invites qualified candidates to apply to your job. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you the needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
Heads up, Texas.
So you don't rear end me when I'm at a stoplight.
So I can ride my bike safely.
So I don't have to write you a ticket. Heads up, Texas, because driving and using your phone is a bad combination. Talk, text, crash. Brought to you by TxDOT.
M1EP.com. Superior multifamily property management services citywide.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
It's going to just about do it for us here for today. You've been joined in here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I've been your host, Andrew J. Polk. Covered a lot of ground in a lot of different ways that I may have expected, but hey, every day is different. We're bringing you some more things coming up a little bit later this week, including talking more about some of the school safety things. I know we'll be talking about that and more, and upcoming investigative work with our news partners over there at KFOX 14, including friend of the show, Stephania Seifert, investigative reporter with them, but also some things about, well, among other things, suicide prevention, mental health, some more resources that are available both in town and nationally. If you haven't heard of 988, we'll be talking about that and what that means, plus more on the voting, more on the economy, more on everything that we focus here on the show here. So John Hurt saying, one last comment I got to get to here, saying no catalytic converters would cut down on crime. Maybe a little bit victim blamey there, but I have seen some creative solutions about putting cages around catalytic converters. So, yeah, I don't know. I've never had one stolen, and so knock on wood, it won't happen just yet. But in any case, thank you all for having tuned in for the show. That's going to do it for us today. So I want to thank everyone who did tune in, call in, comment, participate in the show. Seriously, the things we talk about, for the most part anyway, give me life and make me want to keep doing this as we do every Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. So see you all tomorrow. In the meantime, stay safe out there. Look twice for motorcycles when out on the road. And have a great one, y'all. We'll see you tomorrow.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
No major crashes, not a lot of backups right now on your El Paso freeways. I-10 eastbound's a little slow from Trans Mountain down to the Patriot with 5-minute delays. 54 Patriot northbound at Sun Valley Drive, a stalled vehicle blocking the left shoulder. Police on the scene of an accident in Zaragoza at Alameda Avenue. Take Socorro or North Loop Drive instead. And an accident with injuries on Red eastbound at Westwind. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Hey Texas, this is Eric Burton. And I'm Adrian Casada, and we are Black Pumas. We've partnered with Don't Mess with Texas to turn up the message to keep Texas clean. So come on, join hands and let us be united. Let's all do our part in taking care of our beautiful state roads. It's time to step up. Together, we can keep Texas litter-free. Don't mess with Texas, y'all. Peace.
A construction site is a noisy place where things can be misinterpreted. We need to redo the drywall. It can sound a lot like
Rewire the hall?